Of the threat, let's begin there. It's growing at home within borders, and it's coming from war zones back into places like the United Kingdom. How should the security services respond to that kind of evolution that we've seen over the last couple of years?
Well, the first thing they have to do is get better intelligence and share it, because you can't buy perfect security. I mean, what happened here was they probably had security procedures from allowing people to get in with any of these destructive weapons. So they planted it outside. So they're going to adapt, and you need to recognize you can't buy perfect security. And the other thing you don't want to do is change the way that you do things. In other words, cancel concerts. Don't have people from the United States because we're the leader in the fight against these people, because then they will. And finally, this is most probably a lone wolf type of thing. And the president said you want to undermine their ideology. Well, you have to undermine their ideology by showing that this is not the future of the Arab and Muslim world.
Larry, how do we know whether we're making progress in the overall struggle? We hear very conflicting things. We heard President Obama say we really are making huge progress against Islamic State. Then we had candidate Donald Trump saying, no, we're nowhere. How do we know as citizens whether we're actually getting better at this?
Well, I think it's important, and General Kelly, who runs Homeland Security, has said this a couple of times. How many plots have you stopped? And I think that's the key thing, because, yes, unfortunately, this did succeed, but how many others have you stopped that, had we not shared intelligence, had we not got our agencies together? Remember, on 9/11, we had all the information, they just didn't share it among the agencies, so we're doing much better there. And I think people need to recognize this, because when they hear something like what happened last night, they say, oh, my goodness, we're not doing it, we don't know what we're doing, we're not stopping these people. No, you need to say how many that you stopped, and then get to why people are doing this type of thing. Why are they want to send this message that they don't agree with the way that we're dealing with the threat, particularly in the Middle East.
Larry, we learned earlier that a 23-year-old male has been arrested in South Manchester related to the attack. What kind of infrastructure would someone need to carry out this kind of attack?
Well, unfortunately, we don't know for certain, but, you can go and buy this stuff. I mean, in the UK, you have stricter gun laws. In this country, we don't. But, how did they get the explosives? How did they, buy them? Did the people who sold them to them, did they suspect anything? So should they have, turned them in? I mean, you probably hear this a lot in the United States, where people say, if you see something, say something. And I think that's the way that we have to deal with that, recognizing this is going to be with us for a while.
Larry, pushing things forward to the NATO meeting and the G7 later this week, you talked a lot about security and intelligence sharing. There was some concern that would break down after the UK's decision to leave the European Union, and a veiled threat by the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom to maybe break down intelligence sharing as well. In the United States, over the last week, and some of the revelations about intelligence being shared with the Russians in the White House, that question has come up once again as to whether that intelligence will continue to be shared from countries like Israel with a country like the United States. Are you concerned that intelligence sharing will break down? And what's the role of the G7 and NATO with that in mind?
Well, yes, I am concerned, because from what we know about this intelligence, basically we were told by the Israelis that in this particular city, people were going to use their laptops and other computer stuff as a bomb. And, of course, that is very, I mean, can you imagine what happened if this, was a bomb that blew up on, a flight from the UK to the United States? I hope that, that we will, the president and his people, General Mattis and General Kelly and Secretary Tillerson, will ensure Europeans, look, we made a mistake. We're not going to do that again, because you're right. I mean, this is the key thing. You've got to be able to share it. And the other thing is that President Trump has said NATO needs not just to focus on Russia, they need to focus on these other things, and hopefully that will they will work together to do that. And just because you're not in the EU doesn't mean you're not in NATO. I mean, there are other countries like Turkey, for example, that's in NATO that's not in the EU. So they are two different things, and you don't have to have a formal alliance to share intelligence.
Larry